From the 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska, this is the REPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jessica Blum alongside Chase Madison here in the 1011 streaming studio to break down the loss that Nebraska just faced against Iowa in the Heroes game, 40-16, the final one. Chase, I was just going to mention off the top of the show, the things that I took away from this game were at the end of the first half, the last three possessions for Nebraska went 3 field goals. The last 3 possessions for Iowa went 3 touchdowns. They were able to score on each one of those, as well as just Nebraska seemed like they had momentum going up 7-0, but then that's how you overturn it to end out the half. And Emmett's up 177 yards in the first half, has a career day already in half number 1, but then they go into halftime, and we saw how the second half played out.
Yeah, I think, Nebraska played this game conservatively at times, which you would think is the right thing to do against an Iowa team, and they've been burned in the past for going for it on fourth down in short yardage situations or going for it on fourth down in the red zone and not getting it. So as the game progressed, early on, it felt like those fourth down field goals decisions were the right decisions. Kyle Cubianin was making it despite the cold wind and the flurries at Memorial Stadium, and keeping them in this game. They were getting into field position, but the flip side of it is they decided to kick a field goal to make it 10-7 early in the first. And then Iowa ties it. Then Iowa turns around and makes it 17-10. And then Nebraska cuts the lead again. But then, it's 17-13. Nebraska decides to kick a field goal again. Is that a position where you potentially would go for it? They could have. But what ended up, I think, the big catalyst was the defense didn't really have answers for what Iowa was doing. And they punted on their very first drive, but then I believe it was 4 straight scoring drives, including 3 touchdowns to end the first half for Kirk Ferentz's group. So a really complete finish to the half for Iowa, and Nebraska selling for field goals was safe and worked. But in turn, when the other team is scoring touchdowns, that's how you fall behind. Granted, it was a one-possession game at halftime. Second half, though, different story. Iowa figured out what Nebraska was doing. The weather didn't help the mix. T.J. Lateef did not have a great day passing, 15 incompletions. No turnovers from him, but you see the second half, Nebraska shut out. Iowa scores 24 unanswered, 16 of those being in the second half. So just overall, a disappointing way to finish the regular season, really in back-to-back weeks if you look at the bigger picture. But this game was competitive throughout, and Nebraska had a chance going into the locker room. Just a second half that's just really disappointing and just not something to be too proud of when you did a decent amount of things well in the first half. But in turn, Iowa had a better game plan and played their brand of football, and Nebraska couldn't slow it down.
Matt Rule kind of talked about that in the post-game press conference, too. What was he going to talk about with his players, knowing that he was down 8 going into the halftime, and they were going to get the ball back, but Emmett Johnson had played such a complete game, how to match up maybe what the rest of the offense should have been doing productively, but then also the defense side of things. He liked where they were at, even though it seemed like they were down. But then early on in that third quarter, we've got to bring up, I think, the targeting call that's going to be mentioned a lot, whether that should have gone Nebraska's way, because if it did, and it was reviewed, and it was called for Nebraska, the game would have been 23-16 with decent field position with Nebraska having the ball. Instead, it goes to a safety, and Iowa's up by 10, and then they've kind of got momentum on their side.
Yeah, and looking at that one play, it probably should have been reviewed. It was not thrown on the field, but it could have been called for further review on the field. The booth could have buzzed down. They ended up just passing off on it. Obviously, that upset a lot of Nebraska fans, but at the same time, I'm not going to say it wasn't targeting, because it did look like targeting if I was the ref making a decision. Hypothetically, you could maybe make an argument against it, but it was a pretty blatant targeting call. However, overall, the special teams, besides the field goal kicking, were not very successful today. Ja'Cory Barney Jr., the previous punt was negated by a penalty, but he did fumble the previous punt, and he muffed that one before getting hit for the targeting call. Kickoff-wise, Caden Weegan had a 50-yard return that was plus a 15-yard penalty at the end of it that gave Iowa a field goal early on as well. So special teams was not a strong suit. Iowa played a very good special teams game. Now, granted, they're one of the best special teams in the country. If that targeting call gets called, maybe it goes a different way. It's Nebraska's ball with a 15-yard penalty and one Iowa player ejected from the game in the third quarter. You still have to drive the ball down, and just to, kind of add salt to the wound, the targeting call does not get called. Iowa gets the safety. It's 26-16. It's a 10-point lead. Nebraska's defense did get a stop, and then Iowa punts. Ja'Cory Barney has a good return of, I think, 35 yards, and Nebraska doesn't do anything with the possession. So it wasn't just safety by Iowa, no targeting call, and then Iowa scores a touchdown, and now the game is broken open 17 points. It was actually no targeting call, safety, 10-point game. Nebraska's black shirt defense gets a stop. Nebraska gets the ball back. Offense just doesn't execute. And really, the offense really didn't execute much at all in the second half. I believe Emmett Johnson was held to just 40 yards in the second half. They did lighten his load a little bit in the second half. Isaiah Mosey got a carry or two. But overall, it's just Iowa's defense played better in the second half and really shut down Nebraska. And, it was a little bit of garbage time. It would have just dampened the blow. But even on the final goal to go chance Nebraska had, Heinrich Haarberg gets hit going over the goal line, the former quarterback, and he fumbles into the end zone. That being the lone turnover for the Huskers, the score probably wouldn't have mattered. It would have made it maybe a 24-40 game, all things said considered. But just overall, I think you can't chalk it up to that one non-targeting call for the way the rest of the game played out. Momentum is one thing, but Iowa's defense played excellent in the second half. Their special teams were better than Nebraska's all game, and Nebraska's defense didn't really have an answer for Iowa's offense.
If they're looking to go out on a good win, I think this season too, they can't be relying on just a one call. Yes, momentum would have done a lot, but there would have been a lot more to match up what you're saying with the offense actually producing. There were some questions, I think, around TJ Lateef and his mobility with what was apparent. I think Matt Rule said a hamstring injury or pulled a hamstring during the game. So I don't know if they were changing some of their game plan because he wasn't as mobile and he was kind of at sometimes limping after a play or two, I think, in the second half. So I don't know if that kind of rounds out your gameplay and what's going on there too. And then on the other side, offensively, you've got Gronowski that's setting more records, an opponent setting more records against Nebraska, now at 15 rushing touchdowns and setting a program record for a single season for a quarterback.
Yeah, he set I believe it was yards for an Iowa quarterback rushing in a season. He broke that record. And he actually leads the Big Ten before this weekend's games in rushing touchdowns with 15 now. That's across any back. That's not just quarterbacks. So he was effective all year in the red zone running the ball and was effective today. He had 64 yards on the ground, but those 64 yards were impactful and big plays. And Iowa as a team had 213 rushing yards against Nebraska. So just another feather in their cap. They played the game they wanted to. And going back to your point about TJ Lateef, yeah, he kind of pulled his hamstring. I don't know how much his running game would have completely aided the Huskers, but I definitely think his throwing mechanics were a little bit worse when he was kind of on one leg at times in the pocket. 15 incompletions, just 69 yards passing in this one. He overthrew a handful of receivers. So just not the best game from Nebraska's offense. And Iowa, on the other hand, played a very efficient brand of football.
And it's kind of upsetting, I think. Emmett Johnson didn't seem that upset because he's trying to do his part. As he spoke in the postgame, he's just trying to get his team to a win. So he's just ultimately disappointed when the result doesn't go their way. They don't end up with a win with a career day for him. He ended up with 217 yards. This is the first time a Husker has rushed for over 200 yards, I believe, since the Rutgers game in 2014, so 11 years ago. Amir Abdul, yes. And so career day for him, but it was not enough in this game. You hear the "Let's Go Hawks" chants in the Memorial Stadium at the end of this game, and the Heroes Trophy goes back to Iowa for the 10th of the last 11 years.
Yeah, and I don't know, Matt Rule said, Matt Rule was honest in the post-game press conference that he's mad, and if you're a fan, that you should be mad. He doesn't really want you to be lashing out at any of the players. But at the same time, I think, this type of result is, I almost think, just is almost more crushing just in terms of building a program than a 3-point loss. The 3-point loss, like they had the last 2 years, you're in the game until the very end. The fans are sitting on the edge of their seats. This one, by the end of the third quarter, was pretty far square and away over. And so just not something that you want to go out on the regular season. They're going to have to do a lot of reflecting and a lot of resetting over the next month to have a better result in the bowl game.
Do you have any other final thoughts about this one as we wrap up the Husker game and maybe talk a little volleyball here?
Well, I think it'll be very interesting to see what bowl they get, but it'll also be very interesting to see what transpires with the team going forward, and that's Emmett Johnson's status. Him potentially could go to the NFL, opt out of the bowl game. Raiola news, rumors has been swirling. Can't make anything of it right now, but it'll be interesting to see how these next few weeks transpire within the program right now. Because if just a month ago they re-signed Rule to a contract extension, things were trending in the right direction, and now you've taken a little bit of a step back, ending the regular season.
And the bowl games, I think, will be announced after the conference championships
game
next weekend.
Yeah, so I would say we probably will know the bowl game within the next 10 days.
Okay. That's something to look forward to as the Huskers will keep their hopes alive for a little postseason play to hopefully cap out this season on a positive note like they were able to do with the big Mowers pinstripe.
Bad Boy Mowers pinstripe.
That mouthful.
Yankee Stadium against Boston College last December.
Exactly. But that's what we're going to talk about for the loss. Again, Iowa beating Nebraska 40-16 in this one in their end of the regular season. Just wanted to briefly mention volleyball because Chase is about to head out the door actually this evening for coverage for a 10 o'clock show, Blackout
the Bob.
At the Bob. That'll be at 5:30 tonight, and coverage on Big Ten Network.
Yeah, should be a good one against 25th ranked Penn State. That's still a good volleyball program, have some talented players. Nebraska, I think they're really, obviously, national titles on their mind, but I think something that they're not saying publicly, but it's on the back of their mind, they really would like to close out the regular season undefeated. So 2 matches tonight against Penn State, tomorrow against Ohio State. 2 decent teams. Penn State definitely could hang with Nebraska. So I personally think Nebraska takes care of business, but it's something that they're definitely pushing for. And following the match tonight, they're going to celebrate winning the Big Ten title, which they wrapped up last weekend.
So you'll have coverage, all that and more on our End Report tonight at 10 o'clock. Be sure to tune into that. But as you know, the End Report Husker Show is your first for all the headlines in Husker sports and all the scores and the recap like we just had for the Iowa game. We wish everyone a good evening and safe travels to Chase over to the Bob here this evening. But until next time, we wish you a great Friday evening.
You've been listening to the End Report Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. Watch, listen, and stream on the 1011 Now app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more Husker coverage throughout the week, watch The End Report on 1011 Sports at 6 and 10 p.m. and download the 1011 Now app.